And if you didn't like it, then tell us why you didn't like it, and then we can meet in a dark alley and we can kind of fight it out if need be. Good afternoon, good morning. Afternoon with you. Good morning, my side. How are you, sir?
Very, very good. Very good. Ben, Ben, who we're going to have on this week?
Yeah.
He's he likes to go with good local time.
It's good local time. So what is good local time?
Just wherever you are in the world. Doesn't matter if it's morning, noon, or night.
Okay, a very chilly good morning from a very chilly Cape Town.
It's glorious here as always. Can't complain.
Cool, man. So we've had an interesting weekend. I mean, obviously we did a market update on Friday, and weekend was great. I think a lot of people made quite a bit of money running their longs. It seems like there's quite a lot of liquidity coming back into the market. I mean, this seems like a proper relief rally, doesn't it, Grant? I mean, it looks solid.
Yeah, I mean, let me take these boomer charts off for a second and just have a look at what's... yeah, I mean, I don't think the star of the show is the orange one at the minute. I still think it's still got quite a way to go to actually revert to the mean, but yeah, it's a lot more optimistic. People are beginning to tentatively deploy again. Maybe they should have kind of been looking to get in maybe at this like triple bottom area here, where quite clearly didn't want to go too far below 20k. But yeah, the star of the show is obviously Ethereum at the minute. Obviously, we kind of touched on it. We touched on it on the stream on Friday, was it? Friday.
Yeah, Friday. Yeah.
And nothing, as I was saying to you on a call, nothing seemed to allude to any update on the merge. But as soon as I kind of got off stream, I was thinking that's usually when things begin to start happening, when everything's a little bit quiet. So bought some ETH, and obviously that's, I mean, it's going to take a genius to work out. We're quite high off the lows there, and there was a few good kind of reliable people speaking about this kind of range to be good buying opportunity. I mean, even if you're going to go lower there, you can kind of turn that into a more medium long-term investment, because, and let's see how the end of the year plays out. But it wasn't the worst buying opportunity in the world at like 1,000, even if you kind of got these ticks 800s and the 900 range. You're probably sitting extremely happy with yourself now. But let's see if September is the date for the merge. There was an interesting point actually. Vitalik's got a book coming out on Amazon called Proof of Stake, and the release date, let me just see that. The release date is the 13th of September. Would it be
wow, imagine that.
Would it be too wild to suggest that
would be the day
merge around that time? I mean, that is very speculative. I don't think you're going to see any open pari-mutuel markets where people can speculate on the date of the merge. Maybe we should create one on Hero Network.
I think we need to speak to Gani and ask him whether this is something we need to put into play. I mean, it's a crazy idea, but imagine if it was. It'd be quite a beautiful thing, actually.
There's got to be like that would be a good kind of speculative market for kind of deadlines for the merge to happen. I mean, obviously there could be an awful lot of inside info derived from that. But
Hang on,
definitely
Grant. This is a market update. You're not allowed to come up with ideas like this now. Please, let's just move on from here. Degenerate, dangerous territory about to be explored. Absolutely. I just wanted to coming back to ETH around, obviously, I was just thinking about what you were saying. It's an obvious bottom here. You've got this W and this triple bottom and all this kind of stuff that's happening here. When you got W's and M's, it's all playing out here. But I mean, it's kind of like, obviously hindsight is 2020. And isn't that just what we're seeing here? I mean, isn't it just easy to say, I mean, it could easily have just continued ranging, irrespective of, this merge narrative. It's been around for a while. I mean, there's been a couple of guys, in both the Hero Network, Discord, and one of the guys, Yamete, he's a Kiwi. Like, he's been ranting about, the merge. Like, and admittedly, he said to me yesterday that he was obviously very early around this, but he was expecting this to have happened like 2 months ago. But obviously we had all the liquidations and, all this stuff playing out. And, it's just interesting how, I mean, obviously we'll cover that, in the news section of our next stream around, Three Arrows Capital and, how they just completely and utterly manipulated the market. I mean, inadvertently. I mean, obviously they got themselves into a whole lot of trouble, but that just played such a significant role in essentially putting a handbrake to what's currently unfolding now. I mean, it seems like that's what's happened, and now all of a sudden, the merge is a thing, and it always was a thing, but now we've got the dates, and, I think people just don't realize how significant all these liquidations were in essentially handbraking this market, and in all intents and purposes, it was the concrete block that was tied to the ankles and thrown over the bridge, wasn't it? I mean, if anything, if we see what's going on now, it just seems to be the case.
Yeah, because we mentioned it a couple of weeks back, but we did decouple from traditional equities markets that we've been following extremely closely for the past however long, which seems like a complete lifetime now. But it kind of makes sense, one, to be release, kind of having that relief bounce back into where we typically should be on a correlated perspective with these markets, and kind of retracing to the upside the contagion and all the kind of fear and uncertainty around that. As like SBF is saying, it's kind of that's like the danger zone of and all the contagion that was happening. The worst of it was effectively done. Like at least the worst of it anyway. So it would make sense that at least revert to some kind of normalcy with regards to correlation and back up to where we should be. But added on top of that, you've obviously got one of the largest protocol upgrades in this space's history. So if it was just a kind of relief bounce for the sake of relief bounce, I don't think I'd be allocated as much as I am currently. But because you've kind of got that semi-confirmation of September, you've also got a Fed break between July until September, I believe. You've got some big players starting to get interested in equities as well, which seems a little bit nuts considering nothing seems to have changed on a wider macro level, not to kind of get stuck into that boring thing that everyone thinks they're an expert in now at the minute. But what I'm trying to get at is, if it was a relief bounce for the sake of relief bounce, I don't think I'd be as optimistic as I am. But because it's got that strong narrative and kind of generational opportunity that we probably won't see again as a kind of tailwind behind it, then that's making me a little bit more cautiously optimistic. So,
I mean, imagine being in the middle of the bull, like April 2021, for argument's sake, with a merge like this coming up. I mean, there's no ways like Ethereum doesn't hit $10,000, $12,000. There's no ways. And I think that's what you're alluding to, and I completely agree with you. And just coming back to the decoupling, it seems that my skepticism was unfounded in light of Dan saying that we're seeing the great decoupling on the Friday, and I said, well, let's see if it lasts for longer than 24 hours, and it has. So let's see for how long it lasts for. But I think TradFi's been doing okay. I mean, what's the story in terms of the S&P and the Nasdaq right now? I mean, it looks like they're a bit green as well. So has there been a decoupling?
It seems Nasdaq and S&P is just pretty much. I mean, high lows.
Okay.
Not exactly touching higher highs. Kind of bottoming out there. Doesn't exactly paint the greatest picture, but I don't know. I mean, just the fact that the Fed might shut up for like a couple of weeks seems to be enough time for people to enter the markets while the cat's away, the mice will play, and all that kind of jazz. But
Yes.
It'd be interesting to see how Europe reacts, and if they react with any of their kind of rate hikes whilst the Fed are aware. just to see what kind of shit that could cause. Because I don't think many countries around the world would be too happy that the US are single-handedly just devaluing every other currency on the planet at the minute, kind of kicking their inflation down the road to everyone else. But I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. Everyone will probably turn into a macroeconomist expert again and cause unnecessary fear in the markets that shouldn't even really be talked about, if I'm completely honest. But we'll see.
Well,
I think we should.
We've got Ben coming on. I think we're going to be recording tomorrow. And, obviously these are the questions that I think he's been asking as well. I noticed that, he was asking a number of questions on the macro stuff yesterday on Twitter. And it'll be interesting to see whether he's got answers to those questions. And we'll ask him what those questions were, obviously. We'll ask him the question, what were your questions around, where the markets are at and how this thing plays out. Because he's obviously got a good perspective on that macro aspect. And I'm really looking forward to, because I know nothing about the macro market perspective. It's a very difficult one. And it's not something that you're going to land up being mildly proficient at in a short space of time. So I look forward to what he's got to say. Ben Lilly from Jarvis Labs actually wrote a really good article in terms of the significance of liquidity coming back into the markets. I strongly recommend you follow him on Twitter and just read his essays that he writes on a regular basis. He's got a really good perspective on, where things are at and where things are going. So just check it out. Grant, did you deal with the hound?
Yeah, he's safely dealt with now.
Did you let him out?
I'm trying to find. Maybe it's on the app, FTX app. They have another. I don't know what account they posted from, but they FTX effectively posted when we seen. Let me just find the ETH FTX chart. Here we go. So when we seen the kind of ridiculous candle, I think, I don't know, where was it? Like this kind of area here. FTX posted if something along the lines, if someone wants to buy an industrial amount of ETH, please just contact us.
That's hysterical.
So I don't know if, like, reading between the lines there, and it kind of looks like it on the chart, that someone just came along with a shitload of USD, not knowing what they're fucking doing, and then just market bought on FTX. And I mean, like,
wow.
Godspeed, and like, thank you, because you've obviously kind of thinned that order book out and kind of near enough single-handedly give ETH a kick up the arse.
That's hysterical. I didn't actually see that.
Yeah. So, whoever that was, it was probably like Suzu with like some pocket change he had left over, like trading on his FTX personal account, just market buying shit, trying to make it all back in one trade.
I actually did see mention of that somewhere. Actually, I did see that. Okay, I did see that. I don't think they're going to be making anything back in any amount of trades for a while. I think those guys are in a world of pain.
Yeah, we've I think on Friday when we do the catch up, we've got some more information around the liquidation report and some of the weird shit that came out of that. But we'll get stuck into that on Friday. Just as a structure point of view for anyone kind of listening, we'll tend to go through charts and markets in the midweek, and then Friday is more of a light-hearted catch up on some of the weird stuff that's happened in the market. But yeah, we'll cover the kind of ongoing soap opera that is 3AC and some of the strange stuff that's came out of that report on Friday, because it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. So we'll make sure we cover that Friday.
It seems the more money there is around, the weirder things get. I mean, it definitely seems to be, in general, the order of things, and I think this isn't any different. You know, the guys had a lot of money to play with, and you know, things got weird, and I think we're going to see things get a lot weirder. That's my prediction, anyways.
Yeah, speaking of weird,
speaking of weird, yeah, man. I mean, look at that chart. I mean, $14 range, like for a while, wasn't it? How long did it sit there for? And now it's gone up. It hasn't quite gone up 100%. I'm surprised, but it's almost got there.
Yeah, from the lows, it's like, well, currently, yeah. 100%. I mean, you're not gonna no one's gonna have been like, only like one person will have timed that bottom tick, to be honest. But yeah, they've got a 2x on their money. What's even funnier and even what more weird is, I was looking at a few of these ETH denominated charts, so like ETH Classic against ETH that Binance have, like Ethereum markets, and just look at that. Yes. So
very much sitting at resistance now, isn't it?
So ETH Classic to ETH, I mean, over the course of the last 3 or 4 days, it's certainly outperformed ETH, and you can kind of, on a bounce, particularly when you're trying on a relief bounce, you want to be betting on the fastest horses to try and steal as much capital back from the market as physically possible, and do it in the most effective way. So, I mean, I've got a few positions open, but I'm kind of kicking myself that, one, they're being outperformed by others, because I know this isn't going to last forever, and you want to be betting on the fastest horse, as I say. So the one thing that's really given me like cause for concern is I've got a bag of Sol, which is almost certainly doing well, but the Sol ETH chart doesn't exactly look the best. So for my money, it's like, well, do I need to kind of cut my own bias here and just rotate the Sol bag into ETH, and just allow that to outperform the Sol if I want to buy back in at the lows again, which I think will happen eventually? Then obviously I've got more bang for my buck there, because that Sol ETH chart doesn't exactly scream Sol's going to outperform ETH anytime soon.
So I mean, you raise a very interesting point, which leads me on to a question, and that is that, and I think AVAX is part of this question. Do you not believe that we have a scenario where Sol and AVAX, particularly those two, are lagging at the moment, and that they'll have their moment to shine? Because that seems to be, you know, kind of the discussion that I've been having in my channel on Discord, and on obviously our Blockmates Discord, where, you know, so I've got my own channel going. If you reach a certain post count, you can see that channel. And, you know, my whole strategy with that channel is to ask the questions around, you know, market strategy. You know, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at it? And a lot of the guys are saying that, you know, AVAX and Solana, it's just a matter of time. And we've seen this before, and especially with relief rallies. I remember in 2017, 2018, there were very similar scenarios where, you know, you'd get, I mean, ETH Classic did that many times in the past, where it wouldn't do anything, and it would be like, you know, the meme where the stick is poking the coin, and then next thing it just goes bananas. And the question is, you sell your Solana, right? And then 2 days later, the thing just completely outperforms everything for five to 6 days, and you kind of like, you know. So, I mean, is that a likely scenario? Is it going to happen? I mean, that's ultimately what the question is.
Yeah. So if you look at the Sol USD chart, I mean, the setup's pretty great, to be honest, and I think it is that exactly what you're saying. It's just a complete game of patience. You can't go, as I say, there is temptation to go and rotate in, but you know for a fine fact, if you're thinking it, there should be an awful lot of other people thinking it as well. And as soon as that begins to happen,
yes,
you tend to get caught with your pants down, and then Sol goes on a fucking rip and rips up to $80 or whatever. And then your thesis was right. And I think we've said it a number of times before when we've been on here. It's just the fact that sometimes things do take a little bit longer to play out than first anticipated. Like we'd mentioned the merge multiple times, and we knew we should have been kind of slowly buying into ETH because we knew it was kind of coming. But that took a while to happen until it didn't, if that makes sense.
It was absolutely.
Like slowly, and then you get one idiot who fucking market buys on FTX, or it looks like to be, and then we've got that. But saying that, Sol doesn't look terrible at all. I mean, it's just that you're getting outperformed by ETH. So the whole thing, if you were trying to have a portfolio denominated in ETH, it's like, well, should you really be sat in that at the minute? But for me personally, I still think we're going to go. I still think we'll relief, and we'll be able to steal some money back from the market. But I also think we'll probably see the lows again. So I'm really just trying to outperform the dollar at the minute. So I'm not overly concerned. I've still got a bag of ETH, got a bag of Sol. Don't have a bag of AVAX, which the only thing that's kind of putting me off that is that fucking chart that the community have been adding to. And it shows the emissions, and I still think there's a few unlocks. I mean, not that I'm not bullish on it long term. The chart looks pretty good, to be fair, but I don't know. I just think there's better picks at the minute until narrative and sentiment picks up around Avalanche again.
Yeah, I also just also for the record, I don't really have an interest in AVAX. It was just one of the kind of coins that came up in that discussion in terms of that comparative. I think Solana's definitely got a lot more of a narrative going for it, irrespective of the problems that it's had in the past before. You know, there's just too much money behind it, and there's too much of an impetus to make things work on there. You know, we're aware of some really good projects that are on Solana, and I think that you'd be very naive to think that Solana is just going to roll over and die, you know, from a narrative perspective. Whereas AVAX has got its challenges. I mean, it's obviously a popular ecosystem. It's done very well, but the emissions question is there, you know. There seems to be, you know, some kind of like questions around, you know, like disclosure around what those emissions are, the number of AVAX that is around. There was actually a really good YouTube channel that I watched. I can't believe I've forgotten who it was, but there was obviously, you know, a very concise investigation done into, you know, the sustainability of AVAX and its emissions, and it just didn't really seem very positive. I mean, I don't want to fudge AVAX. I mean, AVAX has been very good to all of us. You know, it's been a very good ecosystem to do stuff on, and it's been huge opportunity for GameFi and a whole lot of stuff. But I think there are still issues there, and I would imagine that narrative is still lingering. And until, you know, some solutions are put in place, which I don't think they're even aware that they need to do, I think AVAX is probably going to land up lagging unless they solve those issues, you know.
There's probably an uninformed idea that there could be still quite a large sum of AVAX sat on 3SE's books as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because they obviously jumped, like once they realized that the GBTC trade had kind of went against them, and a few other trades went against them, they tried to then get into venture. They obviously invested heavily in AVAX, because there was the whole meme about I don't know if you'll be able to remember, but there was the whole meme that as soon as they'd invested, they'd said, "Oh, we've invested 0.2 billion," and everyone was like, "Why did you say 200 million?"
Yeah.
But looking back now,
Yes.
it all makes sense.
And to think that we all thought these guys were gigabrains, but actually they were gigabrain degenerates. Is all it was.
Yeah.
You know, like unbelievable stuff. But I mean, I suppose that's, you know, this comes back to that discussion that we had around, you know, what are the fundamentals around what it is that particularly DeFi should be creating, and it should be about sustainability. It should be about accountability. And as far as I'm concerned, DeFi is alive and well because accountability was definitely put into play here. And these guys were caught wanting. Yeah, maybe later as opposed to sooner, but at the end of the day, they got found wanting and they had to pay back that money. And when they didn't, they got liquidated. It's as simple as that. Pay your debts or face the consequences. And for me, that's a huge success for DeFi.
Yeah, we were speaking about this earlier on the phone. It's like the whole narrative that DeFi is dead is, in my opinion, that it's like the stupidest one-sided take you can physically take. It might be dead in the sense that the Ponzi yield opportunities have dried up naturally as liquidity dries up and people are less likely to kind of play those games. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of dead and buried for now for this cycle. They'll eventually come back. It always does. But it couldn't be more. It couldn't have a stronger proven track record after the past couple of weeks. That's why we've said. I think we've said previously, but we'll say it again. Anyone who's facing extremely difficult times now, where they've lent out money to Aave Compound and other kind of lending and borrowing platforms and things like that, they've chose to pay those debts down first, as opposed to paying down people who are banging on the door or sending them angry emails. And that's, as we say, you can't argue with a fucking smart contract and people that are saying DeFi's dead. It's just absolutely stupid. It's coming from a point of pure greed and the fact that they won't be able to sap any more kind of emissions and customer acquisition costs from DeFi out of the market. I just think it's a really stupid take. It's worked perfectly. Like it's like the biggest bull case, despite the kind of overall sentiment, in my opinion. And Aave's holding up. Aave's doing well. Aave's performing well. Their stable coins should be about to get approved. So, if anything, I think those projects that have stood the test through the past couple of weeks with all the kind of shit that's been going on should come out the other end extremely better for it, in my opinion.
Well, this is what battle tests everything. You know, we've got this infant, well, this embryonic stage of this whole, you know, space, and you know the guys are getting battle tested right now, and I think Aave's, you know, they've proven that they can stand the test of this time. And it comes back to, you know, what, and I'm going to be speaking about this a lot in the coming weeks and probably months, is that, you know, one of the fundamental problems that we've had in DeFi is that it has been predominantly about the Ponzi's and, you know, all these yields and relying on new entrants to kind of, you know, like fuel this whole narrative. And we need that to actually, I mean, it will always be there, you know, the weeds will always grow in the garden, but we need sustainable projects that solve real world problems, you know, and those real world problems right now are very much focused around obviously the gaming side of things. You know, I think the gaming space has always driven innovation, whether it was, you know, in the 80s, in the 1980s, all the way through, you know, innovation around graphics cards, software development, hardware development. The same thing will happen in the crypto space with games. And that's the one aspect of it. And we know that GameFi is a strong thing, and we're going to have some guests coming onto the show in the coming weeks where we will obviously speak a lot about this. And then the other thing are financial solutions, financial services / solutions that solve real world problems, whether it's Forex trading, you know, kind of like bypassing all, you know, these barriers to entry, or just financial services, whether it's trading. I mean, GMX has been hugely successful. DYDX, very successful. You know, all these, you know, Hero Labs is going to be, in my mind, going to be hugely successful. I just don't see it not being hugely successful. You know, all these protocols and projects that are actually laying down what I see as being the bedrock and the foundation of what DeFi should be about, as opposed to just Ponzi's and all that crap. No one said you can't have a yield-derived product within a service like GMX and Hero, but it can't just be primarily about yield and relying on new entrants. It's about creating sustainability, and that's where the research and the understanding of what it is that you're investing needs to come into play. You know, like when you invested in Amazon 10 years ago, those were the criteria that you looked at. You know, what are the criteria? What is this business doing? What are they going to solve? What are they actually offering? And what are they going to innovate? And that's what needs to happen in the crypto space. And the sooner we arrive at that point of view, the better it's going to be for the space, and the faster the space can grow. And obviously we can invite mass adoption. You know, and another aspect to this thing is, you know, how user-friendly is everything? And you know, it's like at the moment things haven't been user friendly, but you know, another crew that we're going to have soon is change finance, where they've completely, like, you know, redefined the way that a protocol and a project gets presented to the public, which in turn allows for the public to actually embrace this thing with open arms, and mass adoption happens. Because why? It's so bloody easy to use. As opposed to me having to message you and 3 other people to find out how to, you know, deposit money into a protocol, which isn't going to bring about mass adoption. And that's what we need to get rid of. And we need to encourage projects which innovate and, you know, make things easy for users.
Yeah, 100%. There was another strong outperformer in the market, and that we mentioned it last week. We mentioned it in the newsletter, which I will leave in the show notes below as well if people want to subscribe to that. We kind of put in what we wanted, what our picks were for the week, and I think they're going to be on track. Let's hold ourselves accountable for next on Friday. We'll check how well they've done. But Matic, it's done extremely well. USD tipped. What did we get to yesterday? 0.98. That's nearly touching 3x off the lows. So you've got to think. You've got to think, right? Matic's relatively liquid. Like what have we got even on? Let me just check on Dex Screener. They've got 8.6 million liquidity just on chain. I can imagine that's an awful lot higher on centralized exchange and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're paying attention, and you're getting a 3x whilst the rest of the world economy is looking like this, you deserve a medal. You're doing extremely well, even if you're getting 50, 60, 70%. I don't think there'll be many funds out there in the market that are even getting those returns. So just the idea of keeping even just half an eye on the markets, or even not as, like, even if you're not operating optimally and like sat in front of the laptop or the computer for as much as you would during greener pastures, it's like you can't take your eye off the ball for too long. There's always going to be opportunities. Not that many people will have bought Matic down here at like 0.34, 0.33 or whatever it was. But yeah, you've had a good run if you did. And even against ETH, it's again those. What's
the Matic? Is there a Matic ETH? Yeah, there it is. Okay, thank you.
That looks great.
Yeah, that says it all, doesn't it? Yeah.
That looks like it just wants to continue, and I know it's obviously like ETH denominated, and it knocks the chart up a little bit, but that looks great because what happens here is people who are late to the ETH trade, if they want to kind of claw some more ETH back, they're going to be looking at stuff that outperforms ETH so they can stack more ETH if they were late to the trade, that is. And I think an awful lot of people were late to the trade. A lot of people got caught offside. I've seen people trying to like FUD, just writing like stupid kind of threads on why you shouldn't even be allocated. You should be allocated if you're making money. Like, there's no questions about it. Just because you're writing a thread on it doesn't mean you've kind of cracked the market and you're some savant sat on the sidelines. You can tell who's sidelined and is bitter about it. So what people will do is, as they come in late to the market, they'll be like, well, I fucked up that little bit, so I'm going to have to look for something that outperforms ETH so I can get a better dollar return for the amount of ETH I'm going to buy in by outperforming it, which makes a lot of sense. But that also, then, if you're in the right project that is outperforming ETH, can cause awful lot of liquidity to go into those markets, because if it's outperforming, as I say, you're going to get more bang for your buck on the ETH trade in and of itself. So you just get aggressive pumps that you see. Obviously, ETH Classic, Matic. There are a few others that I'm not really too concerned about, but those two have seemed to have, like Lido's obviously a bit to play on the whole merge narrative, so that's obviously a strong play as well. But I think that's what we're seeing happening now.
Remember I mentioned one of the guys in Discord who was on about the merge a couple of months ago. He was very much onto Lido when it was at pretty much at its all-time lows. He's like, dude, buy this thing. It's going to land up coming back strong. I didn't listen, and I am extremely bitter and twisted over that.
Let's have a look at it. Have I got it on my list? Yeah.
Of course you do.
I mean, it looks great.
Yeah, I mean, it's had a bit of a retest now. I mean, it's kind of like, but I mean, it's and then you've got, then you got FTX who landed up buying Celsius's, the ETH, the wrapped ETH. What's the ETH called? Sorry, my mind.
Staked ETH.
Staked ETH, and they bought it at a 15% discount, and they're going to make themselves a whole lot of money in the coming weeks, months. It's like this is an easy game. You just got to be patient. You've got to keep your shit together, and you got to be wide awake. And if you're doing that and you're doing it properly, there's a serious amount of money that can be made.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Let's have a look at some lower caps. So I picked up some Aura. Let me remove that out of the way. So these guys Balancer are trying to like poke holes in the whole curve mechanism, and they think the two kind of ecosystems are too intertwined and too heavily reliant on each other, and the tokenomics of both the curve and convex are broken effectively. I think that's the whole narrative. Aura being what convex is the curve for Balancer, and this is what I mean. You can't take your eyes off the market for too long. Admittedly, I'd missed this move to here. Did manage to get an entry around about here, so still that hasn't done too bad for me. I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, but this time was when people were just complete doom and gloom. Everyone just didn't want to look at the market, but there always will be an outlier. It's just you need to kind of batten down the hatches and really start digging into protocols, particularly if they release in difficult times, because you don't know what it's actually capable of once the market allows relief. And anyone who's picked this up at 0.6, 0.7, obviously they're sat on some really nice returns. And I mean, 6.9 million liquidity there on chain as well. That was an awesome trade during kind of a shit downturn in the market. But I'd expect this to continue. Hopefully, I've been speaking to their guys, so hopefully we can get them on as well over the next couple of weeks.
Cool. Sounds good. But you are right. I mean, the outliers are kind of like, and I think, I mean, I know we don't have this on the list, but I think DAS is one of those protocols that I think they've had their house in order. I don't think that, I think they were a little bit unlucky. I think they landed up with an exploit and they managed to sort it out. But I think, in my opinion, this was what came to my mind when you said outlier. Like for me, this was like one of those. I think there's a lot. I don't think it's doing them any favors that they're obviously on the Phantom network. I mean, I'd like to get these guys on as well. I mean, I haven't even entertained the idea, but I'd love to get them on because I think they are kind of looking at things in a different way. They've been quite active, which is obviously a good sign. It's what you said, who's building, who's doing stuff. And these guys have continued, and it'll be interesting to see what they have to say about, where they're at and what they're doing. And you know, maybe there's a story that can be told here. I don't know. I'm completely shooting from the hip here, but you know, they did very well during the bull, and it will be interesting to see how they do, you know, going forward. I mean, they're still around. It seems like there's, you know, there's still some activity there, and you know, I see them as definitely an outlier. I mean, FTM is another, you know, like, where is FTM going to go from here, Grant? I mean, what are your thoughts around that? It's also kind of like, sorry, it's a little bit of a curveball. It's not something that we were planning to chat about, because a lot of people have given up on the Phantom networks, you know, since Andre left and the rest of it. But there seems to be an interest here, you know. Now, so to what extent is this interest? Is this just kind of like, you know, because the rest of the market's pumping, let's just, you know, it's a low cap at the moment, let's just throw some money and then see what happens? Or is there a future for the Phantom network?
To be honest, I think this is probably a lagging player that looks like it's should kind of perform. Strong community, don't get me wrong, and like, if we're getting a 30% move and breaking above 0.4, there's an awful lot of room. There's an awful lot of room in this gap here to quickly turn over and get a couple of X's out of your money. I mean, I've seen the Wolf Saka posting about it earlier. Naturally, that's probably led to that kind of buy volume coming in.
Who's that? Who posted?
Saka.
Oh, Saka, okay.
So obviously that it's fucking fascinating how that guy can draw in so much interest.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No,
he really is a market mover. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, even on this, let me see where we are. If you're looking at breaking kind of this like interest level here, there's an awful big gap here. So
yeah,
it's
huge.
From a risk return perspective, even if you're going to cut like at 0.2, 0. Even sub that, the risk returns is fucking brilliant on that at the minute. From a wider kind of ecosystem development perspective, I don't know. One thing I don't like about Phantom, right, is they seem to have, for better or for worse, they seem to have cultivated this idea that once you're over there, that's it. You've kind of nailed your close to the mast, and I mean, I don't think that's the best idea for a builder or for a protocol, because no one knows what's going to happen, even if the ecosystem and the network has the protocol's interests at best heart, which I think they do. Their kind of growth mechanism was to encourage protocols to have high activity and high TVL, and then that's where the Phantom Ground Foundation would come in and subsidize and give rewards to those protocols. But I also feel as if once you're there, you can't go look further afield. Like, it's different if you're, say, a Trader Joe, where you're a kind of blue chip protocol, if that's even the right word to describe it, on Avalanche. But when you've got an awful lot of competition and quite a lot of protocol saturation on one specific chain, it also doesn't feel right that those specific protocols, even if they want to stay there, it doesn't necessarily feel as if like it'd be welcomed by the wider community if they were to look at cross-chain or even going on to other networks. In my opinion, that's just the kind of impression I get. And also, once you kind of start going down that whole Halloween theme, it kind of makes moving cross-chain redundant as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like it's quite a closed-off community, and I think there's an awful lot of innovation over there, like the likes of your Beethoven and HND and things like that. I think they probably could look further afield, but it feels like once you're in that kind of ecosystem, then you're kind of trapped there. I could be wrong. I like to speak to someone who's a bit more interested in that ecosystem about it, but I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
I haven't really encountered any kind of like Phantom network, you know, like bulls, you know, like, you know, you get people that are completely, you know, like a psycho over an ecosystem, and I haven't really encountered any, you know, in kind of like travels on Twitter and, you know, in terms of the people that we've spoken to. It'll be interesting to anyways, it's an interesting one, and the jury's still out with me. I really don't know where Phantom is at. I mean, obviously Andre did no favors by upping and leaving, but I suppose that was going to that was going to be its ultimate test. You know, the founder leaves, what happens next? You know, and it will be interesting to see how it plays out. And like I said, I don't have an opinion. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. GMX, here we go. Here's exactly what I was talking about. A protocol that actually has significance, that has sustainability, that is actually rewarding its users, that provides a service, that provides relevance in the space. And, you know, the better this thing does, the better it is for DeFi, and the better it is for crypto. I mean, I don't have a GMX bag. I regret that I don't, but it's something that's on my list. And if we do have a retrace, which I'm pretty sure we will, I'm definitely going to buy some of this.
You had, like, this is what I mean. People have had 7 straight days to buy sub $15.
Yeah.
And it's sat at 30 now. Touched around 36.
Stop scolding me, Grant, please.
Touched around 36 the other day. I mean, you've got Arthur Hayes, Crypto Dog, and a few other kind of tried and tested people who've done extremely well in this space talking about it. The synthetics platform that's about to be released, X, their founder and developer, is second to none. He is one of those that people will start to realize he's like one of the best developers in this space. He's one of those that will get cult-like status, but he will, from my opinion, with my past kind of conversations with him, he's not going to be one of those that kind of lets it go to his head. He's just going to keep his head down and build. Doesn't really say much. Obviously, he keeps active in the community and things like that, but he's legit as they come. He's
yeah.
And it's nice to say that about someone who's not kind of just engagement posting all over Twitter and Discord and Telegram and things like that. It's nice to kind of see someone who's level-headed, building something that's being used, building something that's adding value to the whole space. And they're innovating as well with the synthetics platform. I'm really interested to see how that takes off. And what are we looking at here? 239 million market cap.
It's nothing.
I mean, if that's not $1 billion market cap project in it, and however long it takes, it will hit there. So this is just one of those where I'm completely happy just holding. I've got additional ammo to buy if we start to touch the teens or even lower again. So yeah, it's probably the most obvious play in the space at the minute.
One of my favorites, Rdpx. Bring that up, please. Despite Mr. Tetranode saying that he was going to leave and is now back and just giga posting on Twitter, like, I don't know, it's just a little bit painful. I think I'm going to actually have to remove him. Man is incorrigible. But yeah, here we go. I mean, Rdpx is showing signs of life, and also one of those, you know, potentially darlings. You know, it's just another protocol that I think has got relevance in the space. And I've always liked Rdpx. I did very well with it during the bull run. And it's nice to see that it's come back to life again.
Yeah, I've got some of this. I think it was around the 17, 18 mark. So starting profit. So happy with that. I mean, it's just another one, isn't it? They're expanding with their Atlantic options and things like that, and non-liquidatable options and things like that on chain. They always seem to be doing something. I mean, I don't like that dickhead who's just sold 92 grand's worth, but all right, it's open market.
Yeah.
But no, it's probably one of those that'll be just silent, and then just completely fucking rip. I mean, look at that December period. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I know people. I know people like take the piss into like vertical accumulation, but that you had 2 red days. You had 2 red days, and it went from, let's see, it did 600%. So you got 7x on your money. you effectively. I mean, look at that candle there. That's absolutely.
I mean, it's
76.
insane. That is insane.
It's nearly did 100% in one candle. So yeah, I mean, those are great times. I think we'll get times like that again.
No, we will. We definitely will. That's why we're still here, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. I think what would be really interesting is to take a look at DPX, just out of curiosity. Where is that thing sitting at the moment? 260. Okay, it's still very low. I mean, we know where this thing can go, and it's had a great run. Look at that. Wow, I didn't actually realize that because I hadn't looked at this one. I mean, look at that. How far are we off the lows? You know, like it's actually ridiculous.
52
I mean, how far
million.
are we off?
Look.
How is this thing only a 52 million market cap?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, yeah, that's one of those where you should be just looking at that, and that just doesn't even make any sense. Even like fully diluted, 116. So even if effectively fully diluted price would be around 520 ish, maybe a little bit higher. You still got some ridiculous returns there if we decide to run up. Yeah, that's I mean, they keep pushing shit out as well. It's like
yeah, I mean, they are one of the better ones. And then obviously same school, same crew that promoted the whole thing from Tetranode's side is obviously Jones. Let's take a look at Jones. I mean, I landed up losing a lot of money on this when they launched. It was kind of like a little bit of a kind of disappointment for me, because, you know, when they launched, there was kind of like all this promise, and it did exactly the opposite. It just, you know, just like sell off. It just didn't stop selling off for weeks, and I held, and you know, I mean, obviously look at what happened. It was a good thing to get out of it, but, you know, this thing, in my opinion, has yet to realize its potential. You know, even at the tail end of that bull, but people would have argued that we already were in the bear, sort of November, December. I think they launched in December, if I'm not mistaken. This was a painful one for me, you know. But look, it is what it is. It's all good, you know. It's part of the process, and I mean, I can see here that, you know, just zoom in there on the daily. I mean, it's had how many green days?
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green days.
Yeah, I mean,
green days.
I'd be pretty tempted, to be honest. I mean, it was some big volume coming in yesterday. Like Mike at Expo was saying we need to be buying some of this a couple of days ago, and I just didn't get around to doing it. I think we picked up a small position. As soon as we get any retrace towards like the dollar region, then it'll probably be loading up pretty high. 1.9 million liquidity, 4.2 million market cap. It's the problem I have with it is it was similar to, remember how like the basket of assets of like Danny's projects were completely reliant on how each one was doing. Yes. And obviously not, and this is obviously a little bit more correlated because Rdpx, DPX, Jones, they all kind of tie into each other a little bit more. But it's completely reliant on how the other two are doing as well. It's just like a beta play on that. But if those two are looking good, then naturally this should continue to run. I mean, 4.2 millions is completely tiny, really. You've seen, but then again, you look at DPX, 50 million market cap. It seems just preposterous, really. But I don't know. Who knows?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Grant, that it's just testimony to liquidity exiting, you know, and we've seen it in all the markets. And obviously, you know, these protocols are, in all intents and purposes, your outliers. I think the last one that we've got on the list is Umami. You've been bullish Umami since the beginning. I know that this is one that you've really enjoyed. You know, I never really paid much attention to this one, but, you know, I mean, it looks like it's done pretty decent, hasn't it? I mean, it looks pretty solid.
Yeah, I think I probably got in maybe 17, 18. So again, happy, even just happy for like 20, 30% returns. Like I'll take anything that's given it and then just keep a tight stop. If we're dropping below like 19, maybe even going back down into this region, start paying a little bit more attention. But yeah, so just as a brief overview, what I like, and I think what we're obviously focusing on a lot with our articles and the people that we're trying to work with recently is the whole idea of this sustainable and real yield, and trying to weed out the people who are just creating projects based purely on emissions and actually drive no value to the space whatsoever. But Umami have kind of set up these vaults. You can go and deposit your Umami, and on the back end they're using GMX with their GLP strategy and then hedging it on Tracer, so that they're effectively delta neutral, but so absorbing all the yield up from those specific protocols. And I know from speaking to a couple of people who are involved with these projects that they've got a few other really interesting strategies coming out as well over the coming weeks. So they'll have more vaults, more opportunity for liquidity to go in, obviously generate greater returns off the back of that. So it's nice to see, and I really like to see these kind of innovative ways that you can kind of use multiple different protocols to generate sustainable and kind of non-emissions based yield, and these guys are kind of leading the way on that. So yeah, I mean, without sounding like a dickhead tourist investor, it's like I'm just buying it for the pure speculation of the fact that they're bringing out these quite innovative and interesting delta neutral vaults. I'm no kind of interested in staking right now. I'm just trying to steal some money back from the market that I lost over the past few months.
Just last one before we wrap it up, because we're coming to the top of the hour. Just put up meters quickly.
This thing's been ripping, hasn't it? It's been absolutely killing it. Yeah.
So in my opinion, this thing will reach all-time highs again. When, I don't know, but I'm very bullish. This one, and obviously the ecosystem. We've been working with them and just getting insight into what it is that they're doing. We're going to be getting them on stream as well, just to discuss, what they're doing. And, if you look at, from a research perspective, who's doing what in the space, are the guys active? I don't think there's very few that are as active as Metis and have been, kind of like in the depths of despair. They were 10x down from where they were, but they're still carrying on, and they never speak about the token. They never speak about the price. They only care about one thing, and that's to drive the innovation and bring the users onto their platform. And, that's the kind of narrative that we need in this space. People that want to bring good products. I mean, I was listening to a stream, not a stream, a Spaces, around my brain just went blank there. Around their kind of this grant that they've got going out. They've got $100 million, and they're basically trying to promote, bringing developers into the space. Natalia was on Spaces. That's Vitalik's mom, and she's heading the whole thing. She's kind of like overviewing projects that are asking to come and build on Metis, and they've got money. They want people to come and develop and do stuff, and we need more of that in the space. And they're kind of like battle testing everyone. You can't come in if you've rugged before. You can't come in if it's a Ponzi. And they really are kind of going through these projects with a fine tooth comb, and that's what we need now. It's almost like a regulatory body, that they've set up within, a DAO DAC structure. It's very similar. We'll discuss that in coming streams, where they review stuff on a community basis, and it's essentially like a self-regulated principle that they've introduced into this ecosystem, and hopefully that will set a precedent for something that can work. And then hopefully, if it does work, other ecosystems can introduce it into their own fold. Last thing, Grant, in terms of your positions right now, I think, like it's always interesting to kind of get a perspective around how other people kind of manage their portfolios and the rest of it. You've obviously had your entries, and you obviously will look for more entries and the rest of it. But how do you manage your profits? Principle? Do you have a set percentage that you take profit on along the way? I mean, what is your strategy around that? You're in spot, right? So you're kind of following the spot principle as opposed to running longs and the rest of it.
Yeah. I'm spot at the minute. I mean, I've got Solana, ETH, Matic, and DYDX open on FTX. But now, like, time in the entry is gradually kind of DCAing over a couple of days. Probably started that last week. Maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday last week, and continued maybe a little bit more over the weekend. And now they're kind of in a position where you can kind of move the stops up to entry or just above entry. So they're kind of just sat resting, allowing them let the trade play out. Monitor it closely if I'm sat at the desk. Don't necessarily need the stops to be on while I'm at the desk, so I can kind of cut that. The on-chain stuff, it's obviously a little bit more difficult, but it's just setting alerts, and you can set alerts on deck screener and things like that. But usually it's I'm not one. I know this sounds bad, where it's probably goes against a lot of trading principle, where it's you should set a specific price target to take profit. And a lot of people in the Discord, when they say, "Oh, they'll ask what kind of the price target is," it's more of a feel for how the chart is looking at the specific time as opposed to a specific price target. Because if it doesn't hit it, then where are you supposed to take a profit? So it's kind of just judging the momentum, judging sentiment, and kind of looking if it's really, really struggling to break out and wants to come lower. And that's, if it wants to go lower, is that going to be below entry? And then just kind of having a feel for it. You kind of know how these things play out once you do this all day, every day, and just kind of cutting stuff when it begins to look weak, or there is an opposing narrative going against it. I mean, I do have a wider price target where I'm going to start looking to take some off with the likes of ETH, where they've got kind of clear resistance, probably like 1800 might take 20-30% off, and then just let the rest ride, and then see how the momentum plays out of that. But yeah, I just tend to kind of play what I see as opposed to predicting what I want to happen, because in the past that's been a recipe for disaster. So my overall strategy is usually just seeing where the momentum is, what overall kind of feeling for the market is, and then taking profit as and when there. But yeah, stops on FTX a little bit easier. Just kind of move those up to just above entry. So regardless of what happens overnight, if the merge breaks, we all have to go to Ethereum Classic, then I'm protected. Barry
Cool.
Show, that'll be out in force.
Just a reminder, thanks Grant, that's very useful. And so it's more around kind of like setting those stops and then getting a feel for the markets and making decisions. But I think obviously the take profit is key, and obviously it's very much, for me it's like it's very much derived out of protecting a position, and kind of, and then also the secret to that is to not look back, like, oh my god, I shouldn't have sold, and all those kind of like feelings that you have when you sell too early, which is inevitable. But just a profit take is a profit take. Don't undermine that. Cool. So top of the hour, everyone, just please subscribe if you aren't subscribed, and give us a like. And if you didn't like it, then tell us why you didn't like it, and then we can meet in a dark alley and we can kind of fight it out if need be.
One final thing as well.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly a savant on ENS. Ooh, shit.
The ENS narrative. You've been very bullish on this, and you've been right about it as well. This was a good
0 to 10,000. Well, probably 9999.eth. I think that's a pretty obvious play for the ENS demands. I mean, these have been moving up, and obviously it's a leveraged play on ETH if your floor price is moving up and ETH's moving up in price, obviously you compound those returns as well. But I picked a few of these up. And I'll probably look back in 6 months and think, what the fuck was I playing at? But, you know, seems a bit of like an easy story to tell.
I mean, you're effectively pumping your bags now, aren't you? I mean, this is what this is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. So Grant, I mean, obviously we've decided that we wanted to be more consistent with our streams, and you know, market update is one of them. I mean, what else have we got in store? I mean, it seems like we've got you Benjamins coming on. I think we're going to record tomorrow, and then we've got the founder of Change. He's coming on as well. Going to have some of the Meters crew on, Hero Labs. Yeah, it looks like we've got a whole lot of stuff coming on stream. So yeah, guys, we're not going to be strangers to the space. So yeah, get your alerts on, and yeah, give us ideas. You know, if you got ideas, come speak to us in Discord, send us a tweet, get involved. You know, we are a community. You know, all the stuff is free. We're not forcing you guys to subscribe with cash. Discord is all free. There's a ton of alpha that's going on in our channels. Get involved. You won't regret it. And yeah, that's my bit for this morning. Thanks everyone. And yeah, thanks Grant.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll speak to you later on. Thanks everyone for stopping by and do all that YouTubey stuff that people ask for as well. And
cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers.